Welcome to the Performance Mindset Show. I'm your host, Amy Calandrino, CEO of Beyond Commercial and author of the book From Perfect to Real. This show is all about leveling up in business, real estate, leadership, and life by shifting how you think, grow, and lead. Each week, I bring you real conversations with top performers and mindset experts, and they're building big lives on their own. So if you're ready to ditch perfection, trust your path, and grow with intention, you are in the right place. Be sure to subscribe. So today I have with me Dean, is it Caravelis?
You got it.
Woohoo!
Perfect.
She was asked before we started rolling, but I just wrote this book about not being perfect. So here we go.
Hey, you're living.
And he's founder of Blezoo, and a marketing company with a unique approach to helping businesses differentiate themselves. I actually met you through my friend Ansia Pepper. I don't know if you remember that. Okay, so I love Ansia. Ansia is an entrepreneur, has had a number of different companies, and now her most recent company is a Keep Going First Aid, which I actually use for my. And then you're actually neighbors with one of my clients who's over on Sprint Boulevard. They're at 2152, so down at the end on the right. So and you're further up, so it's
cool,
which is kind of funny. So, but you just wrote a book, the Experience-in-a-Box Playbook, touch points that can change the game. Talk a little bit about your company, what led you to write the book, and we'll talk a little bit about the book today.
No, Amy, appreciate you having me on today. And yes, keep going. Awesome products. We buy them as well. Right? Having the little kit with Band-Aids and stuff in it. So highly suggest that. So gosh, where do I start? So the Experience-in-a-Box Playbook is probably 17 years in the making. That's when I started my company Blezoo. And I thought, it was about time I write a book and encapsulate some of the lessons that I've learned the last 17 years. Originally, I started writing the book, but then realized I was writing 3 books in one. Classic mistake from a novice, right? So I got recentered and I said, let me focus on one thing.
Yeah.
And I wrote about marketing and branding and differentiating yourself. And it was a really cathartic, as I'm sure you can relate to, journey, just writing the book and putting your thoughts on paper. And it's been fun to launch and just see where it goes. And yeah, it was a fun process. It was like a bucket list thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, just a really highly effective way to be able to think clearly about your profession.
Yeah. One of reading your book was really profound for me, and it was interesting. I actually said in the team meeting, I use one of the analogies from your book is when we're out there looking for tenants to fill the vacancies for our clients, or we're looking for the right clients, or even for ourselves, you talk about being more, do you really want to be a shrimp boat captain or do you want to be a spearfisher? Okay, you want to talk a little bit about
Oh, absolutely.
I shared that with my team and they thought it was so cool.
Yeah. So I'll give you a real world example, right? And so with my building, I have a lot of shrimp boat captains contacting me all the time about it, right? And what I mean by that is it's just the junior associate calling you, you're another name on the list. Hey, are you thinking about selling your building? Okay, but later. And so that's kind of the approach, right? The volume approach, the contacting as many people as possible and just checking the box. And you see it everywhere, right? The spearfisher approach, the other side of it is more the approach of like, okay, I want to be intentional about developing this relationship with somebody, and I want to research them a bit more. I want to learn about what makes them tick and what their endeavor is, and really focusing on the customers that I want to serve rather than just kind of dragging the bottom of the sea and seeing what comes up. And so I think it's an approach that really applies to like virtually every profession. And it's something that I've talked about, the language shrimp boat captain versus spearfisher quite a bit. And I kind of made it one of the central themes in the book that I just kind of, sprinkle in here and there throughout.
Yeah. I can so relate to it though. It's interesting. I'm really good at cold calling when I do cold call, or I like to do door knocking. I'm more of like an in-person person and like showing up and getting through. I'll give you a couple, two examples. It's like I bought a building and then I was like, I want the other building next door. And I tried getting through, and, I did research them. I knew what they did, and all those, that kinds of things. It was CPA firm. But the front gate person, she would not let me in. She not let me in. So I researched the person, found his home address, mailed him a nice, like, Hallmark greeting card and say, "If you're ever thinking of selling your building, let me know." And he's like, "Oh my God, I'm ready to retire." And which I already knew. So, and, sure enough, we own two buildings next door, but I just did this for my other client. He outgrew his commercial condo. And he's like, "I really would rather, like, get one of the next door neighbors' condos." Sure enough, research them, and they're pretty big company, and found out where he lived, wrote him a very, detailed handwritten letter, and we are in negotiations right now. And so spearfishing. It takes a lot more time, but it's a lot more effective.
Yeah, it definitely takes more time. I think people appreciate it though and it's obvious that you've spent the amount of time that you did, right? Doing all those things. It's really hard to be a shrimp boat captain when you cold calling and face to face. You kind of could with cold calling, but at the very least, you're at least finding a way to get in touch with them. And it's really about the approach. And it's obvious that you're already living that through your approach. And I think it just makes them for a much better start to the relationship when you're able to be more thoughtful about how you engage with people.
Yeah. And I think just even finding, for me, I look for synergistic clients that are the same way and that value the relationships. I always have and I'm sure your clients too, you
100%.
have to find the right clients that you want to work for, because maybe they would be better suited with just working with a shrimp boat captain.
No, 100%. At Blezoo, it's important to us who we're working with and that the company's the right fit, because we like to spend a lot of time getting to know our clients, getting to know their brands, getting to know their style, because I think that's an investment. I think people, when they see you investing that amount of time to understand them, I think that over the long haul, that makes for a much better relationship. So you're not just another vendor. You're kind of someone on the team, right? Someone on their team that they can rely on, they can trust. And that's what we try to do every single day.
Yeah. It's so interesting. Yeah. Because I think you kind of maybe felt like the black sheep of the marketing, you're just doing things a little differently. And I often feel that way in commercial real estate, because everybody's like, "Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing this?" And I'm like, what I'm doing is working. So I keep doing it that way. Um, One thing I loved in the beginning of your book is you talked about the story of Sham, the horse that ran the Kentucky Derby.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the same year as the Secretariat.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody ever heard about it. Can you talk a little bit about that example, and what's a takeaway for companies, trying to be the best, and out, but they could maybe be outshined by someone else?
Yeah, Sham's story is an interesting one because when I first heard about it many years ago, I was like, I wrote this down. I was like, I'm going to use this for something. And just hearing about the second fastest horse in history and how it just never made it out of that race. Like nobody heard about the second fastest horse in history because it was outshined by the fastest horse in history, right? And I think the aspect that they weren't memorable was that they just ran that race. That's all they can do. They couldn't reinvent the game. They could not use creativity to their advantage, right? And so it's just a lesson in sometimes you're going up against generational talent, but maybe we can shift the game a little bit. We can change our approach and create a playing field where we can stand out and be creative and use those as advantages. We can use our own inherent advantages whenever we're in a competitive situation, right? And I just thought, I was just shocked that the second fastest horse in history nobody had ever heard of. And I consistently throughout the years have asked people, like, have you ever heard of Sham? Right? And nobody's ever heard of Sham. And I just thought it was just a kind of a tragic story of a generational talent no one heard of. And also a signal to other people out there that might be generational talents that are going up against 800-pound gorillas. You don't have to compete on the 800-pound gorilla's terms. You can change the game. You can shift things. You can work towards your advantages, right? So I think that's my lesson and my takeaway from Sham.
Yeah. Yeah, and you could do things in a different way. One of my friends wrote a book about it's called The Sweaty Startup. His name's Nick Huber, and he talked about, if you have the choice between competing against LeBron James versus the fifth grade girl. Go, choose wisely. So, and then that way, you actually can succeed and shine.
Yeah, it's just beginning with the end in mind. Like at Blezoo, we're really good at serving clients, being creative, coming up with solutions maybe that are not very obvious to the outsider. And also, as like we were talking about earlier, not just sending a customer a link and saying, "Hey, you go figure it out. You tell us what you want," right? Like we kind of live to serve, and that is obviously way different than just being a website, right? And we're working with the clients that appreciate that value that, right? That we're able to show value to. And so um, I concur with Nick, right? Like you don't want to be playing against LeBron James on LeBron James's terms, right? And so I think that's part of what changing the game is.
Yeah. I think, and I think a lot of what you did came from you were a marketing director and you had to sift through a lot of calls. And so one thing I thought was kind of interesting so you could figure out who you actually wanted to work with is you turned the tables and started asking those, like calling you and saying, "Hey, you're trying to sell me these products, but can you share with me a success story where your products actually boosted your business?" Or, what inspired you to kind of take that approach? Can you share a little bit about that?
You know, it's funny, like a lot of things that happen to us in life, we can trace it back
Right.
to usually something kind of maybe trivial that happened many, many years ago. And I knew I wanted to start a business at some point. And so for me, that one of those initial sort of sparks was, hey, there's this industry that seems pretty cool. And there's a lot of people in it. And they're all shrimp boat captains, at least the ones that I met.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is kind of fascinating to me. And so I started to do my own research whenever they would prospect me. I would ask them questions and be able to understand more about the industry, what makes it tick. And it was just kind of fascinating that there's this entire, multi-billion-dollar industry built on the back of websites and also back then catalogs. Just, "Hey, have you looked at my catalog? Have you looked at my catalog?" And so I thought, this seems like an opportunity. So that was my initial spark. Let me ask you, what was your initial spark to get into? I know you're interviewing me, but what was your initial spark that was like, "Hey, I want to be in the real estate space"?
It was interesting. So I was working with my husband at the time. He's a small business attorney, and I was a paralegal still at the time. And we had a tenant rep, perfectly nice guy. But I noticed it was kind of more of like a tour guide, and just here's a space, here's a space, here's a space, and this is the best deal. You need to sign here. And then we ended up in the space and just super large, like offices and no elasticity. We had no bullpen, and we started to do really well. But we had nowhere to put people. So we were stacking people in the offices. We eventually had to put somebody in the server closet. And I was like, man, like if we had only just thought a little bit more strategically about that and had someone be more like a Sherpa and kind of lead us up the mountain and think about things and plan for tomorrow. The other thing I noticed was there was two patterns. I noticed at the closings, either you had people that own their own, real estate and they were selling their business, and then they had the opportunity to rent it to the person that bought the company, or they could sell it, or they could just do a million things, because as soon as a business becomes their own landlord,
Mm-hmm.
you break free of the shackles. I call it leasehold servitude. So it's kind of deep, but that's what I call it. And the other thing I saw was there were a lot of folks that would sign leases, and they would have to work behind the counter at their smoothie shop that they just bought the franchise for, and eventually have to declare bankruptcy because they made a not great choice. And I said, well, I've been working in business law a really long time. I have, strong, interest in business. I love small business. What if there was someone that was more of like an advisor and helped people in commercial real estate? So that's what I did. And I started out in office space, expanded to industrial, also do retail. So I just find I look for the growth-minded kind of entrepreneurs, but that's how I got into it. I was just like, there has
Mm-hmm.
to be a better way, because business, it's the second biggest expenditure for a company
Mm-hmm.
is space.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to put some purpose and some intention into your space.
Yeah, you said something really interesting there. You kind of glossed over it, though. I like the analogy of the Sherpa, because, a Sherpa, usually you hear in the context of like scaling Mount Everest and doing these different things. And it's kind of perfect, right? Because the Sherpa kind of guides you, is willing to risk their own, right, life, maybe not in business, right? Maybe reputation to help you accomplish something that is quite difficult. And they're trying to keep you out of danger. And they're also more adept to the different environments where they're taking you through. So I love that analogy. I might use that in the future, Amy.
Well, I think about it, and actually, I just got I literally got goosebumps. I get so excited the first time I have someone that goes from leasing to buying their own building. Yesterday, I had an attorney texting me pictures of his building that he's repainted, his signs up on the wall, and he's so excited. We worked together for 6 years. He just, none of them were quite right for him. It was just, one of those things that I was really patient but I knew eventually he would have the right one. But there's a lot of fear of crossing that, it's easier to write these little lease checks, it seems like, but eventually, writing those lease checks to yourself is a big game changer. And he was reminding me like how thankful he was that I helped him do that. And a lot of other brokers wouldn't have the patience and the wherewithal for doing that. And it doesn't normally take that long. But I did. I stuck it through, and he was really glad that he did it. And actually, I'm going to go visit his new space in like a week or two and go check it out. So, yeah.
Awesome. Love it.
Yeah, it is cool. But yeah, I am like a Sherpa because they haven't been through it before, and I've been through it. I've bought and sold multiple buildings, and even me doing it the first time was a little scary. So,
such a big investment, right? But pays off, especially if you're patient.
Yeah. So, but thank you for asking that. Oh, yeah. How about your name for your business? How did you come up with your name for your business? Because you founded it in 2008.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I was just talking to somebody earlier about, starting in 2008, which pretty much the whole world economy was cratered. But sometimes, naivety is a superpower. But Blezoo, it's a concoction of Greek and English. Both my parents are from Greece.
Oh, okay.
And I'm fluent in Greek. And so I wanted to come up with a short name, because if you think about it, like 2008, what were the names out there, right? Like Yahoo, Google, things of that nature. So I wanted something short and fun that I could brand. And it's just a concoction of Greek and English. Ble means blue in Greek, and zoo, because in 2008, the whole world was a zoo. And so I just kind of made up a word. And so I did have a couple criteria. And the first was I wanted something short. And I wanted something memorable so that when you Google it, I'm the only thing that comes up.
Yep.
And so that was kind of my goal. And it's also a conversation piece, right? Because if I'm out there and I've got a polo on that says Blezoo on it, for many, many years, people that didn't know who Blezoo was or what Blezoo was, I would be out, and somebody that I've seen more than a few times would be like, "Hey, like what is that logo? Like how do you pronounce that? What is it?"
Right.
And so the value of creating conversations, right, is really high, especially when you're working to grow a business. So yeah, it was kind of a fun like intended consequences, but unintended positive consequences also.
I think it's so important to have the right brand. I actually had the wrong name for a many number of years. And in 2016, I did a strategic kind of rebrand of the company. And my name came to me while I was like analyzing a pro forma for a client, and I was listening to Frank Sinatra radio. And the song Beyond the Sea came on by Bobby Darin. And I was like, that's it.
Hey, it's always that spark, right?
Right. But, and I was like, that's it. Clients keep saying you're always here for me beyond the deal. And, the deal's done. Why are you still here? And I'm like, well, because you're kind of stuck with me now.
I think it's perfect. I love it.
Yeah. And speaking of brand, I remember you talked, and I saw the Instagram video for this not too long ago. There was Payless shoes, and they did like this pop-up Paylessy. And talk about that. I love, if you haven't heard of that, you should look up the YouTube. I wonder if Jen can drop in the YouTube link for that, because it's just hilarious to watch.
Yeah. No, it's another one of those things that I wanted to include in the book, because I read about it years ago, and it was just a great lesson in presentation.
Right.
And so basically, this agency took Payless shoes, put them into a pop-up called Paylessi. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Palessi. And so they positioned it like this designer shoe pop-up, and really high-end, upscale, luxurious. But it was literally just Payless shoes with a different name.
They put like a sticker over the Payless shoes.
It was a kind of a thought experiment, right? And just thinking about that, right? Like same product, 10x the price, different packaging, different experience. There's something to be said about placebo, right? Like when someone's looking at something goes so high quality, you can tell that the craftsmanship on this is amazing. But then when you look back and go, well, it's the same as the Payless shoe, right? It's the same exact shoe, literally. So I just thought it was an amazing thought experiment. Just really drives home the value of presentation and how everything you do related to presentation with your business, right? And so, and that's why me and my colleagues at Blezoo get obsessive about the details, obsessive about the client communication, how we're positioning the company, how is this going to impact the client's reputation, right? And focusing on all those details. And so I think Paylessi is just the perfect example for anybody that thinks like presentation and packaging and everything is worthless.
Yeah.
It's not. It's extremely valuable.
Let's talk a little bit. I go to a lot of trade shows, and it's so interesting. I mean, you have just a premium of space to bring items back with you. And so I'm sure everybody does it. You finish up at a trade show, you have everything across your desk, across your bed, and you're figuring out what are you going to take, if it even made it back to your room. Even if you picked it up off the table, you actually had a matrix of items in perceived quality and brand, and whether people are going to keep them, throw them. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the matrix in the book, it's called the Merch Impact Matrix. And it's just two axes, right? One is quality.
Yep.
And the other one is brand connection. And so my thesis is that you want products that are high quality, that elicit a high brand connection for people to keep them and use them often, right? And whenever you start to kind of come off of the quality and come off of the brand connection, that's when you're talking about the thing at the trade show that you get that's 50 cents, that's going to be at the bottom of your trade show bag. And I guess you had something that you gave somebody, but they're not really connected to it and it's not high quality. And so my belief is focus on less things that are higher brand connection, higher brand quality. And I think it's an important lesson because I think thinking about even like a sustainable future and also a more meaningful future where we're engaging thoughtfully with our constituents, I think the less is more approach is valuable. And I think, quality is also a perceived thing, right? Like the Paylessi thing. And so it was an important lesson. But I think we need to be thinking about the quality of the things and working with trusted advisors, right? Just like trusted advisors are leaning on your expertise to Sherpa them. We work with customers that want us to Sherpa them through the quality and the connection game also. And so, yeah, that's another kind of important, I think, lesson in the book that I kind of harp on, right?
Well, I mean, if you just get some cheap plastic pen, are you generally going to keep it and use it? There's a commercial real estate coach, Rod Santomassimo, and I went to one of his events, and he had this beautiful cross pen, and it's actually still on my desk, and I get refills for it, and I haven't gotten rid of it. It writes like amazing, and of course, I like Rod a lot too, so I like the brand connection as well. But I totally agree with. And then there's sometimes like I have brands where maybe I don't connect to them as well, but it's a good, useful thing, and I'm going to keep it versus just, you're almost better off not doing something than coming across in a very cheap manner and being the shipboat captain.
Yeah. And one of the things in the Experience-in-a-Box Playbook that I mentioned is, right, instead of giving something to everybody, how about giving something nicer to people that maybe signed up at your booth, if we're talking about trade shows.
Yeah.
And so just finding ways to be more thoughtful with your budget. And I think that helps take your dollars a lot further.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too, is that, yeah, like if, maybe a good strategy would be if you're at a trade show is say, hey, if we schedule like a demo time together, I'm going to send you like this really nice, and then so you're converting people and
Mhm.
then they're getting something nice ahead of you. You're connecting with them.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. We work with customers to also create experience-in-a-box mailers to where when people take that next step, we ship it for them on demand from our warehouse
see that. That was so cool.
within the next 24 hours. So um, I think that part of changing the game also is thinking about there are so many different ways that we can connect with people with branded merch. It's not always just a one size fits all approach. And so um, it's kind of with creativity, there's really no bounds, right? There's kind of an infinite number of ways that we can connect with people. And so trying different things that align with your brand, I think is super, super important. Just experimenting and doing new things.
Yeah. And what's cool about your products also being a box is, I mean, probably way, before when you started the business, no one did like unboxings. Now it's like a whole thing. Like people are like, they're unboxing on
Yeah.
TikTok and it's a whole thing.
2020 definitely accelerated that. A
Yeah.
little bit more of a remote environment. I think the first box we did at Blezoo was probably like the first uh, large scale box campaign was maybe 2016, 2015 for a client, somewhere around there, somewhere. But we started by doing them for ourselves, right? And so I think a lot of times you are the proof of concept for marketing. So you got to eat your own dog food and be able to do things and lead your customers and show them alternate ways to market themselves. So yeah, but we've been doing that close to since the beginning.
What are some of the other like lessons in business that you've like learned along the way that you would want to share with our audience, which are often other business owners, thought leaders,
Mm-hmm.
C-level executives, investors? What's some piece of advice you'd like to share?
So I personally think that playing the long game is one thing. And so for me, the long game is, for example, when I'm involved in a specific type of community, I'm in it for the long haul. I'm not just going to show up and then leave. And so for me, playing the long game of being engaged in different communities and networks you're a part of, right? So for me, one of mine is my alma mater, UCF, right?
Yeah.
I started getting involved there around 2011 ish. And I'm still engaged there. I'm still volunteering. I'm still speaking. I'm still mentoring. And it's not specifically about business development. It's about being a part of a network, right? Because I think business development is about showing up and showing that you're going to be a part of something and you're going to contribute. You're not going to just show up with some business cards trying to get business, right?
Right.
And so I think playing the long game and being invested in whichever communities and networks that you decide to be a part of is super, super, super important. You don't want to be the person that just shows up every once in a while and then disappears into the night. So those are like two specific things that I personally subscribe to and I think are really, really valuable. And I think it kind of coincides with also for someone that's just starting off in an industry. I've heard this from a number of professionals and I fully believe it. Sometimes it takes 10 years in an industry to get to where you want to go. And so be patient and stay the course, play the long game, get involved in your network because there's not that many overnight successes, right?
No.
And so usually someone's been at it for over a decade and then, well, they're an overnight success now. All of a sudden, nobody sees that decade of work. And so I think the patience that the long game takes, I think is the other thing I really wanted to share.
Yeah, I think it's so important to have patience and also don't be afraid to make, difficult decisions. I kind of feel like with software, like I feel like I'm on Beyond Commercial 4.0. And you've probably been through different iterations of your business, like as well as like you figure out what works and what doesn't work and, continuing to innovate and figure out what your team needs, what your customer needs, what you need.
Yeah, a book that I read a while ago, which is a fun little read, is The Dip by Seth Godin,
I've
and
heard this book before.
it has a couple of great lessons in it, and one of them is to know when you're just in a dip, which is kind of like maybe a low point, but you really just need to keep going to get through. And then you need to know when you're in a cul-de-sac, which is a dead end, is not going anywhere. And this is going to be just sunk cost after sunk cost. And so I think
Cul-de-sac.
everyone's been in a cul-de-sac, Amy. And so there's people watching this right now, they're probably in a cul-de-sac, but you need to know the difference between a cul-de-sac and just a rough spot, right? And so I think about that book quite often, right? When you're trying new things and experimenting. So I think about that quite often, right? As we're experimenting with new things and new products, what's the dip and what's the cul-de-sac? And I think through experience, you learn that through making errors and also kind of getting lucky. Like, wow, look at this great decision I made. Sometimes there's luck in the universe as well that conspires to turn that into a good decision, right? Like kind of like buying a property at the right time, right? Like it's hard to know until you look in the rear view mirror. So yeah, I think about that quite a bit.
I remember now who recommended that to me was my business coach, Daryl Parker. So he has his own company up in New Hampshire, but he serves people throughout the nation. He does a website, Parker Design, but he had recommended it to me. So now that I heard it again, I definitely have to read it.
No, absolutely. I mention Seth Godin stuff all the time because I've read most of his books. I did his alt MBA program. I've done workshops of his, which is why he's mentioned in the book quite a bit. But yes, the dip, highly recommended.
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes for sure. Those listening to the show. I think it's. Oh yeah, I felt like it's been a while, so I want to make sure I missed enough time. So you're good. Well, I really enjoyed speaking with you today. Is there anything that we didn't talk about today that you would like to share with our audience?
So I would actually. I just posted something this morning on LinkedIn. Maybe I'll share that.
Yeah.
And it's just about, we lived like really busy lives and we have a lot of complex relationships. And there's a lot of people that we've been thinking about, but we haven't reached out to in quite a while, right? And I thought about this because I had my high school basketball coach died of cancer a couple of years ago. And me and my friend Socrates were talking about going and visiting him because he just retired, and we never did that. And so I think the one thing I wanted to share is like, life's too short to wait till the time is right to write the thank you note, show some gratitude, say you're sorry, forgive somebody, or just take the trip and see someone in person that you haven't seen in a long time. So I would just say, be impulsive, right? Like write the thank you note, make the phone call, and schedule to see the person that means something to you, because we never know what tomorrow will bring. And we don't know how much time we have because it's such a finite resource for us. Hopefully I'm not finishing on a downer here, but I think it's
I've had two situations happen to me where I thought of someone and I didn't reach out to them.
Yeah.
And they passed. I had a advisor on my team, and she had moved on to another brokerage, which was amazing, but she was a great person. And I thought of her and I didn't reach out to her, and then found out she had died in a horrific car accident with her mom and her aunts, like all three of them. And it was awful. It was literally awful. And I also had thought of a client once and then heard that he had passed away. And so I've had this happen. So that's actually one of my mantras too, is even if you're just sending someone a flip it test, because like you keep popping into my mind, like, if someone pops into your mind, you just reach out to them, even if it's to send like a text, and then maybe schedule a time to do coffee or get together or whatever. I think that I don't think it's I think you would feel more down not following this advice at something happening, because I've been there, and it hurts a lot when you think of someone and you don't take that action.
Yeah, I think kind of the takeaway from that is, like I mentioned about taking the long view approach earlier. You can take the long view approach, but still be spontaneous and still be a little bit impulsive and take action. I heard recently that inspiration has a shelf life, right? So like if inspiration has a shelf life, that means like if you're inspired to do something right now, right? Especially related to human connection, do it. Like do it right now, because tomorrow you might be busy. Inspiration might have faded. You have different priorities. So play the long game, but be spontaneous and make sure to focus on human connection in your relationships.
Oh, I think that's so valuable. How is best for people to reach out to you? And your book's on Amazon as well?
Yeah, my book is on Amazon. Um, it's a hard copy, soft paperback. I know the audiobook should be uploaded soon, probably by the time this is shown,
Yep.
I'm guessing. And you can reach out to me for if you're looking for branded merch, Experience-in-a-Box products, go to blezoo.com. That's probably in the show notes, blezoo.com. I have a personal website, deancaravelis.com as well. That has a way to get a hold of me as if you're not in the branded merch game.
Right.
And so, yeah, and I'm not, hey, we were talking about earlier about spelling things like Blezoo and Caravelis, right? And there's not a lot of things that are easy to spell in my life, right? But at the same time, I'm easy to find online. So LinkedIn as well. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. That's another great place to reach out to me.
That was another reason I took my husband's last name, is like there wouldn't be many other Amy Calendrinos once I took it. I was Amy Guy before, and I guess there was some Miss Universe or something by Amy Guy, so she's
Yeah,
much more popular.
easier to spell, but not as cool.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, this has been great. I really appreciate you joining me today. Thanks to everyone for listening as well. Today's episode gave you something to think about. Again, be sure to share and subscribe. Want to go deeper? Grab my book, From Perfect to Real. And you can connect with me on beyondcommercial.com, amycalandrino.com. Until next time, stay grounded, stay growing, and keep showing up for yourself. This is Amy Calandrino, signing off.